Simone De Beauvoir was one of the most important intellectual voices of the 20th century. Born in France, she was an outspoken feminist, a social activist, theorist, philosopher, and a novelist. Beauvoir's philosophical essay Le Deuxième Sexe, which means the second sex, published in 1949, became the bedrock for the entire modern feminist movement. She was associated with the philosophical school of existentialism alongside her partner, the philosopher and novelist Jean-Paul Sartre. Beauvoir was raised in a strict Catholic family. She spent much of her early years taking education in convent schools. At one point in her youth, she even considered becoming a nun. But at the age of 14, Beauvoir had an enormous crisis of faith and she renounced religion totally. In fact, after this incident, she began to focus on science and philosophy. Simone De Beauvoir eventually abandoned her religious faith and remained an atheist for the rest of her life. Simone, in defending her decision to do so, once stated that, I quote, "Faith allows an evasion of those difficulties which the atheist confronts honestly." Unquote. When she was just 21 years old and still a student, Beauvoir met the budding philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre. She already had a boyfriend then, René Mahau. It was Mahau who is said to have given her the permanent nickname Le Castor, the Beaver. But after meeting Jean-Paul Sartre, the two of them formed an instant romantic relationship. The pair remained close companions for the rest of their lives, informing and shaping the nature of one another's work. However, they had an unconventional relationship, even by today's standards. They never married or had children, never shared a house, but had an open relationship. It was Sartre who proposed a pact in which they could have affairs with other people, but they were required to tell each other everything. As he put it to Beauvoir, I quote, "What we have is an essential love, but it is a good idea for us also to experience contingent love affairs." Unquote. 3 years after Sartre's death, Simone De Beauvoir published a collection of his letters written to her. These letters contained detailed descriptions of Sartre's activities in bed. But as was expected, Beauvoir edited them to conceal many identities. It was only after her death that Sylvie Le Bon de Beauvoir, the executor of the feminists' matters, published the unedited version. And these unedited letters shocked the literati. Beauvoir had continuously denied having sexual relationships with women. But in the unedited version, which included her letters to Sartre as well, she regularly described, for the benefit of Sartre of course, her nights in bed with women. The most appalling discovery for many readers was what telling each other everything really meant. The correspondence was filled with catty and derogatory remarks about the people Beauvoir and Sartre were either sleeping with or trying to sleep with. Scholars and journalists often accuse the Beauvoir of publicly masking painful bouts of jealousy. While her inner emotional life is unclear, what's evident is the manipulative, often dishonest, and arguably the cruel treatment to which both Sartre and Simone De Beauvoir subjected much younger female consorts. For example, 16-year-old Bianca Bionenfeld, a student of De Beauvoir's who was 14 years her junior, suffered so much at the hands of Beauvoir and Sartre. Soon after the two women began their affair, Simone De Beauvoir introduced her lover to Sartre. he promptly made it his mission to seduce Bournonville. After a romantic entanglement between the three of them, Simone De Beauvoir told Sartre to end the relationship, which he abruptly did in a letter. Bournonville, who was Jewish, later narrowly escaped the Nazi occupation of France. Neither Simone De Beauvoir nor Sartre tried to reach out to her even once. When Bournonville read letters to Sartre and saw the flippant tone the pair took towards her, she said, I quote, "Their perversity was carefully concealed beneath Sartre's meek and mild exterior and the Beaver's serious and austere appearance. In fact, they were acting out a commonplace version of dangerous license." Unquote. Simone De Beauvoir can be said to have engaged in two-timing any number of times. While still actively having an affair with Bournonville, she became sexually involved with yet another student, Nathalie Sorokin. In a letter to Sartre, she wrote, "I have a very keen taste for her body." Sorokin too slept with Sartre with Beauvoir's encouragement, and also with another lover of Beauvoir, Jacques-Laurent Bose. The strange entanglement between all of these became even more bizarre when Jacques-Laurent got married to Olga Kosakiewicz, a student with whom again Simone had an intimate relationship. In a strange display of free-for-all kind of relationships, Jacques-Laurent, even after his marriage to Olga, continued to have an active affair with Simone De Beauvoir. And to make the situation seemingly stranger and more laughable, Beauvoir and Olga too remained intimate friends for a very long time. From her letters, Simone De Beauvoir's relationships appear more affectionate and tended to continue for longer periods. Nelson Algren, the American novelist, is a perfect example, with whom Simone De Beauvoir shared a decade of long-haul love letters, addressing him as her beloved husband. He inspired the thinly veiled character in her 1954 novel, The Mandarins. She discusses their love life in the book quite erotically, a move that Algren did not quite approve of. She lived with Claude Lanzmann, a French filmmaker, for a large part of the 1950s. But even during this time, she was still committed to Sartre and to their pact. Simone De Beauvoir's open sexual relationships became quite scandalous and created a lot of controversy. But it never overshadowed her achievements as a writer. Simone wrote essays, novels, and memoirs on a wide range of topics. Some of her most notable works include The Second Sex, The Mandarins, She Came to Stay, and Les Inseparables. She also won numerous literary awards. "Women, you owe her everything," was the headline announcing Simone De Beauvoir's death in April 1986. It was a phrase repeated over and over at her funeral, where some 5,000 mourners gathered to pay tribute to the writer many consider the greatest French woman of the 20th century.